True scary story. Guardians of the Mountain. My name is José Armando. I am a Spanish teacher at a rural school, and I will share some stories that the children wrote exercises, stories and legends about their families. There's not much to do here. One is a teacher, another a soldier, the third an archer. There's nothing else for us to do. Opportunities have arisen because they no longer sow. My cousin Gustavo is a soldier, like his uncles and grandfather. He usually doesn't exaggerate, always speak as if they are instructions, reports, or lists that need to be carried out. Part of his military background was passed down to him on his mother's side. That's why when we started talking about it, after what happened in the mountains that morning, her voice sounded different than usual. It was neither feigned nor firm nor anything more. She was tired, as if she didn't want to remember what happened, but she couldn't get it out of her head. The patrol's orders were simple. Check the perimeter of the area, where reports had been filed a few days earlier. Strange movements in what had once been a hunting village. It was an abandoned mining town. A few dilapidated houses that had stood in the same place for decades. Tin roofs bent by the wind, and a chapel so small, it looked like a warehouse. No one had lived there for years, too many. Rumors about the reasons for the abandonment vary, depending on who is telling the story. Some speak of paramilitary groups, disputes, disappearances, and other stories that ceased to be rumors and turned into warnings. In fact, the town formed not because the mine closed, but because the mine had existed for a couple of decades longer. The area was completely cordoned off, and the town was left behind. The convoy was small, just 2 vehicles, trucks. They arrived early in the morning because the commander said that nothing could be heard during the day, that the sun was deceiving. However, at night, the real sounds of these places filter through the cracks, sounds that linger between branches and roofs. Gustavo had never been to these mountains, but they seemed heavy, enormous, and still to him, as if they didn't want company, as if they didn't like anyone walking around. At first they followed a dirt road, and found nothing, just an old tire over there, a broken chair, a bicycle without tires, next to a tree, already becoming part of it. Such a sense of abandonment, as if it weren't new, but very ancient, as if, in this place, they would have forgotten that anyone had ever lived here. At 3 hours 40 minutes, he and Morales, a thin but talkative corporal, moved forward a few meters. They weren't looking for anything specific, simply following protocol, inspecting windows, checking doors, shining a lamp without going inside. When we reached the last house on the road, an entire wall had collapsed, leaving behind. Look inside. The lamp barely illuminated, a wall hung with religious engravings. The emaciated skinny cat slowly crossed its wings. Who knew how long this would last? She lived there. Who knew where she came from? Everything was quiet. So quiet it was beginning. Consider withdrawing the unit and marking the perimeter when, without warning, radio contact was cut off. They played at full volume. The voices were unclear, not broken. It sounded like an aborted attempt at speech. Gustavo said that at first they thought another unit was arriving, that there was nothing in the sound that resembled human rhythm. Still, they answered. But no one answered. Only when they heard the first voice did everything change. The sound outside made them realize they were not alone. It was something like a song, but without a melody, like a quiet hum, self-generated. It came not from ahead, but from behind the trees. It was a single voice, but they couldn't tell whether it was a woman's, a man's, a woman's, or a young man's. It was unidentifiable. Morales fell silent. Gustavo simply raised his hand, signaling that no one should move, and they saw a figure emerge, little by little, as if someone were coming out of the bushes to see if anyone had arrived. A white, slender silhouette, with a shawl that wasn't really a shawl, but something else. Long, like a seamless fabric. She walked slowly, as if wrapped in it, from head to toe, with no intention of approaching. He stopped in front of a small chapel, right in front of it, where a rusty crucifix stood. He turned to them, not quickly, and not quickly. Dramatically, he turned as if he heard his name being called. His face was covered. They didn't know what exactly. What? Not a mask, not a veil, but not bare skin either. It was something else. Average too pale, but enough to hide his face, his features. My cousin Gustavo said the strangest thing wasn't the figure, but that no one had given the order to aim the weapon, and yet they all did it, as if the body had made the decision on its own. No instructions, no orders were given. The figure raised its head toward nothingness, toward the mountain, and behind it, the forest reacted to what was happening. You could hear the wind swaying the heaviest branches. The radio crackled again. This time clearly, go away. It wasn't the voice of anyone we knew, no one. A name, no clue, just a command. Later, Morales swore the voice was female. Gustavo said it was impossible to tell. The only things they agreed on were the lack of interference, and the fact that the sound was too sharp. When I trained the camera on the figure again, it was no longer alone. Near it, among the bushes and rocks, there were two more, as expected. One of the recruits wanted to say something, ask a question, but couldn't utter a word. My throat simply wouldn't obey. My cousin assured me it wasn't fear, that it was something else. Something deeper, as if he couldn't even speak. One of the figures raised a hand, as if saying goodbye, blessing, or dismissing them. And then, yes, the forest spoke, as if the mountain itself sighed deeply, deeply, just once. As if all the land, the trees, and then silence fell. They retreated, not running, because running was necessary. That would have meant admitting they didn't understand what they were seeing. They climbed into the trucks. No one said a word. My cousin simply said, they didn't mean us any harm, but they didn't mean to. They wanted us to stay. They wanted us to go. The next morning, the report was filed, with a code no one explained, meaning no hostile contact, no physical evidence, no sick leave. Standard procedure, what gets signed when nothing is backed up. He wants to write the truth. My cousin Gustavo believes that the city didn't abandon itself, that it's simply the mountain range, whatever still lives in it, no longer wishes to receive guests. We are still here. Thank you for continuing to listen to the previous story, and the one that, I think they share the same point of view because they talk about ghost towns, and we have many of them, Mexico and Latin America, for different reasons that, if you look closely, may not turn out to be so fundamental. Different. We take this opportunity to ask you if you or your family live in a city that no longer exists. It does exist. Search your memories for stories about this place. It will benefit both you and them. Besides, every time I pass by places like these, I feel curious to see it in other eras, full of life, full of people. What could be better than the opportunity to do it through their stories? But in any case, for now, we will continue with stories. My soldier brother, we are friends. That is, we were born in the same pregnancy. Have a good rest, and good night everyone.